What's good, y'all? All One Car is back again with another car review, and today's a special day because it is the first Mercedes I've had on my channel. Let me present to you the 2014 Mercedes-Benz E63s AMG. Before we start, I want to give a quick shout out to my good friend Tempa for letting me borrow his 2014 E63s. I really appreciate it, man. This car is beautiful. So, what is the E63 AMG? Well, it is Mercedes' top-of-the-line version of the E-Class sedan, which is their mid-size sedan in between the C-Class and the S-Class. AMG is a special Mercedes tuner. They specialize in hand-building performance engines and basically making German muscle cars. This E63s has a 5.5 liter twin turbo V8 engine making 577 horsepower and 590 pound-feet of torque, which is insane. So let me give you a quick rundown of the E63 because it can get a little confusing. So from 2006 to 2009, the E63 in the W212, that's the chassis code, had a 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8. This made 570 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. That was from 2006 to 2009. From 2009 to 2011, the W212 model, it also shared the 6.2 liter V8, but power was bumped up to 518 horsepower and torque was kept the same at 465 pound-feet of torque. Now, 2011 to 2012 is when things changed, okay? In 2011, they introduced the 5.5 liter twin turbo V8 for this car. And from 2011 to 2012, in the W212 model, it made 518 horsepower and 516 pound-feet of torque. Same horsepower as the old outgoing naturally aspirated motor, but a little bit more torque. Now, this is why the 2014 model is the best model in my opinion. From 2013 to 2016, you had the facelifted version of the W212, which meant that it was a little bit smoother. As you can tell, the headlights are a little bit rounder. The front fascia is a little bit more sleek. Side profile is generally about the same, but coming around to the rear, it's a little bit more sleek as well. But that is not the only reason why the 2013 to 2016 is the best E63. It's because after they reduced the engine size to a 4 liter twin turbo, and granted it makes more power than the outgoing 5.5 liter, I'm just a sucker for displacement, okay? You can't get rid of displacement and expect people to be happy. You went down 1.5 liters, and granted it's more power just because of the turbos, I assume, but from 2011 to 2016, Mercedes had the 5.5 liter twin turbo V8, which is probably the biggest twin turbo V8 available in a sedan, honestly. Another thing that made this car special was the fact that its 5.5 liter twin turbo V8 was paired to an MCT speed shift 7-speed transmission. That's a lot, I know. A lot of people think that this transmission is the dual clutch, but it is not because it only has one input shaft. It is actually an automatic transmission, but instead of a torque converter, you have a multi-plate clutch pack. This is why people usually think it's a DCT because it's multi-clutch, but the clutches aren't actually changing gears, they're just engaging with the engine or not. Another thing that made this E63 AMG the best E63 is the fact that it was the first model year to come with all-wheel drive. Previous AMGs were burnout monsters, right? They would just smoke the tires in every gear, and that's fun and all, but Mercedes is about class and refinement at some point, you know? So for the 2014 model year, they introduced the 4MATIC system, which actually split the power between the front and rear, 30 front and 70 rear. This added 154 pounds over the previous version, but when you're driving, you cannot tell at all. European markets also got a rear-wheel drive version, but North America only got the 4MATIC version. This car also features electromechanical power steering, which sounds like a bit of an oxymoron. I'm not sure what that means, but it doesn't feel too bad. It's a little floaty, like you'd expect from an E-Class. Not as crisp as a C-Class, but that's what you expect. Some differences between this and the previous generation is this has a steel unibody, which is about 30% more rigid. It also uses aluminum panels, such as in the doors and in the trunk and the hood. It also gained 0.7 inches in length compared to the previous gen. Width is about the same. But some difference between the E63 and the standard E-Class is the A-wing front bumper. As you can see on the left and right, there are bigger air intakes on the bottom as well as one in the center. We have flared fenders, front and rear, AMG side skirts, AMG mirrors, and quad tips with a diffuser. Now I have to say, looking up close, you can see that the quad tips aren't actually real. They're just faux tips that are floating in front of the muffler. Standard stuff these days, but it's still a disappointment in my eyes. We got some 19-inch wheels, 255s in the front with the 6-piston brake caliper. 19s in the back, two 85s though with 4 piston brake calibers. This car stops pretty fast. It can go from 60 to 0 in 107 feet. LED headlights front and rear, as well as adaptive cruise control, as you can tell by this fake badge. Lots of carbon everywhere on the car, on the front fascia, on the mirrors. Also have a carbon trunk spoiler. But let's see what a hand-built 5.5 liter twin turbo V8 looks like. Amazing Mercedes hood, goes all the way up. You already know. But here it is, AMG 5.5 liter twin turbo V8, handcrafted by Matthias Lute. Thank you, Matthias. You did a really good job here. But as you can see, 577 horsepower, 591 pound-feet of torque. A lot of people say that Mercedes underrated the power figures for this, and I believe it. This thing hauls. It is one of the smoothest, fastest. It's not even like, it feels like time warp speed. I don't know how to describe it. It just moves. And the gear shifts are instantaneous. 100 millisecond gear shifts from an automatic, which is crazy. This engine was very short-lived in Mercedes lineup. It only lasted from 2011 to 2016. And people thought it was gonna stay for a lot longer than it did, but all of a sudden it was replaced by the 4.0. People kind of forgot about it. These engines didn't have that many problems. They did have some timing chain issues, just the timing chain guides, stuff like that, you know, coolant leaks, the coolant hoses, you know, dry rot and stuff like that. But a lot of people have been able to push lots of power out of these things because of the forged internals. Because it is a 5.5 liter, you can run that boost stretches, you know. If you're running a lot of boost in a small engine, you're not going to make as much power as running a little boost in a big engine, if you know what I mean. But again, it's really unfortunate that Mercedes stopped making the 5.5 liter twin turbo, as this engine is insane. I've heard some people say that these engines are underrated so much that from the factory, that at the crank, people have been measuring almost 675 horsepower and 650 pound-feet of torque. This car was able to do 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds and a quarter mile of 11.9, all while weighing almost 4,400 pounds. So this car is not light at all, and that is why the power is needed to get it up there that fast. If this power was in a lighter car, oh my goodness, it'd be insane. But this car is a little bit of a boat, so it needs this power. The S model, because its top speed is not limited, can reach a top speed of 186 miles an hour. But let's close up this hood, because I know you guys want to hear a rev. We got the quad tips with the AMG diffuser. And man, even though the tips are fake, the exhaust sounds mean. Take a listen. Now, because this is an S model, there are some differences between it and the standard E63. The first is the boost pressure. It makes 14 pounds, which is what brings it up to 577 horsepower and 591 pound-feet of torque. It also has an LSD, limited slip differential, and torque vectoring technology, which takes some of the oversteer away when you're hitting turns at high speed. Because remember, this is a boat. Other than that, we had some carbon standard as well as the S badge on the back. Moving on to the interior of the car, starting over on the driver's side, you see 3 big gauges, typical Mercedes of this era. We got the gas and the coolant temp on the left, which is surprising because with a performance car, I think I want an oil temp because that's more performance oriented. But in the center, you got speed with the floating Mercedes speedometer, standard Mercedes stuff. And on the right, you have the tach, which reminds you that you're driving a twin turbo V8. Right underneath, you have the flat bottom AMG steering wheel with Alcantara stitching, leather on top, Alcantara in the hand bolsters. Pretty nice looking wheel, not too bad. Steering wheel mounted paddle shifters as well. Moving down below, we have the metal pedals, as you can see, with rubber grips on them. Very nice, standard AMG stuff. Now, the best part about the AMG, or Mercedes in general, are the seat controls. The seat controls, as you can see, are found on the door panel, not on the side of the seat. But what you do find on the side of the seat are the massage controls. You can adjust where the massage is, up, down, how the pulse works. It's pretty cool, and it feels pretty good, to be honest. But as you can see, we have nice aluminum trim mixed with carbon fiber. Very nice looking, very solid feeling. I know Mercedes of modern times in the last year or so, they don't feel as well built as they used to, but I can say that this one, being a 2014, feels pretty solid. In the center, we have Mercedes command system. It's okay to use. I'm not really a fan of it. The nav is slow. I just usually go to the radio or not really use it at all. You know, I got my phone to play music, so I don't really need to use it. But it works when it does. You can also see some of the same information in the screen in the middle gauge, which is kind of cool. Another thing I wanted to show you was this car's 360 camera, which debuted in this model year. 360 camera, you can see all around. Pretty sweet, right? You're moving, it shows you everything. Amazing. Moving down, you see your IWC clock, typical AMG clock, very nice. These are very expensive, and it's really cool that they put them in the car. Below that, you can see your infotainment controls. I was never a fan of this era of Mercedes where they put so many buttons when it could just be changed into a screen, or you don't need these buttons at all. Like, it says the phone button. Like, you don't need to call anyone with your car, okay? This is like 10-year-old technology at this point. They really need to stop putting this in. I believe they stopped putting it in the later years, but for this era of Mercedes, they all had the phone pad in it, which was weird. Moving below, we have your heated and cooled seat controls, as well as the back shade control. Also controls the back headrest, so they drop down if you need to see. Eco mode, parking sensors. Under there, we have your climate control for the automatic climate control. You got your temperature on the right and left, fan speed, as well as your max and auto buttons on top. Moving down to the middle, we have the AMG shifter, which is pretty cool because it's hollow. You can actually stick your finger through it. It's a little weird to use at first. When I always go from park, I go straight from park to drive. If I need to go to reverse, I need to go back up to reverse, which is kind of weird, but it works. To the left, we have all the car settings. We have comfort, sport, sport plus, manual, traction control off, damper settings, 3 settings, comfort, normal, sport, and then we have the AMG button. Similar to a BMW with the M button, this just, you can configure it to whatever you want. Below that, we have the command controller. Pretty simple, you got a back and clear, and this just pushes down to select. Moving on below the shifter, we have the center console, as well as the cup holders, which are nice because they're hidden if you want them to, behind this retractable slide. You also have this split opening center console, which can be opened from both sides. As well as a decent sized glove box, 2 tiers. Some storage underneath the seats, just in case you need it. This car also came with a black Alcantara headliner, and you know how much I love black headliners. This thing looks amazing. Very high quality. Another thing Mercedes has, which is pretty unique, are the double visors, so you can be covered on both sides, no matter where the sun is pointing. This car also has automatic sunroof, 2 panes, one for the front, one for the back. The back pane does not open, the front pane simply slides over it. So the front one opens, but the back one is just to let the sun in. Overall, the cabin is a really nice place to be. Although this is an E-Class, which is supposed to be a mid-size sedan, I do feel like it is a little small in here compared to what it looks like on the outside. I'm not sure what that has to do, how they did it with the packaging. You just feel a little bit more cramped in here than I would expect. Parking sensors located on the front dash as well as in the back, right above the rear window. Interesting places to put the parking sensors, but I guess it makes sense because that's what you're gonna look when you're driving in each direction. Like when you're looking in the rear view mirror to see where you're going behind you, you can see the parking sensor. In front of you, right here on the dash, it's a Mercedes thing. We got an ashtray and a cigarette lighter hidden up front, pretty standard. But let's move on to the back seat and see how much room there is back there. Moving on to the back seat, it's not as big back here as I would expect it to be. As you can see, their seat is in a good spot for me to sit in the front, but my knees still hit it while sitting in the back. They do have some cutouts here for taller people, and I assume if I put the seat up about 2 or 3 inches that it would work fine. As I said, it's not the biggest car, You would think that being an E-Class, it would be a bit bigger than how it is, but that just goes to show how small the C-Class is. Because I don't even know if I could even fit in the backseat of a C-Class, to be honest, if this is how an E-Class is. Not many amenities back here. As you can see, there is an ashtray and a charger, as well as some pockets for passenger stuff. You also got the retractable sunshades on both windows, as well as the rear window. Backseat passengers do get a cup holder. And these cup holders are pretty cool because they fold out kind of weird. But there you go. A little bit overcomplicated for what it is, but you know, that's what the Germans do. Again, very nice black headliner, as well as the back sunroof. Now, although the interior does feel a little bit smaller than I imagined, the trunk is pretty big for its size. 15.9 cubic feet of space, which is very large. And I believe it extends to almost 60 cubic feet of space with the seats folded flat. Overall, this car is amazing for what it is. It is the perfect daily driver. 600 horsepower, almost 600 pound-feet of torque. Twin turbo 5.5 liter V8 with an automatic transmission. The rear has air ride suspension. It's comfortable. It's quiet on the inside. The doors feel nice when you close them. There really isn't much to knock about this car, to be honest. What's even crazier is that even though this is a 5.5 liter twin turbo V8, it still gets 16 city and 24 highway due to cylinder deactivation technology. This means that when you're cruising on the highway, it can reduce the amount of cylinders down to 4, which means you're only using half the engine. But that's enough of me rambling about the car. Let's get in it and see how it drives. So what's it like to drive the E63s AMG? Well, my first impressions are it is very smooth and solid feeling. It feels very Mercedes. Prior to this, I've only driven like mid-2000s Mercedes, and I drove my friend's C63s for a little bit, but I didn't really get a good feel. But this feels solid. This is one of the more solid feeling cars that I've ever driven in terms of how the body just feels like it's one piece and it's connected. The steering, it has electromechanical steering, whatever that means. It's kind of vague. It's not just like a regular old hydraulic rack. You can definitely tell that there's some softness to it. Not the best response. The one thing I love about this car the most is the transmission, the way it engages, because it's still an automatic. At the end of the day, it engages really nice. Again, a lot of people thought that this car had a DCT, but it is actually an automatic with a multi-plate clutch. As I said before, 577 horsepower, 590 pound-feet of torque, 591, and this thing moves, okay? Like if I floor it, as you can see, it takes off. That is in part due to the fact that this does have all-wheel drive. As I mentioned before, it has a 70%, 30% rear front split, which gives it a rear bias similar to that of a rear-wheel drive car, but it also has the front to pull you out of the turns if necessary. But man, this car is something else. It's like wherever you want to go, you just point it and it goes. AMG basically makes muscle cars for Europe, and to be honest, they can't compare with American muscle cars because these just simply have way more technology. In an old school American muscle car, you're looking at a pushrod V8, 2 valves per cylinder. This one's a dual overhead cam, 4 valve per cylinder, 5.5 liter twin turbo with 14 pounds of boost. This thing is insane. This car also has lane keep assist, which is pretty cool. You can feel it buzzing at you as soon as I hit the yellow line. But when you're cruising around in this car, it feels pretty good. It's very planted. Let's see if I can overtake. It's crazy because it's like, it goes so fast, but there's not that much theater to it. It just does what it's asked immediately. No questions. This car is something else. The transmission is really good. I'm telling you, like, I don't know if it's just because I'm stepping out of SMG, but this thing just puts the power down immediately. let's hit some back roads and see how it handles. The handling was just never one of its fortes. Even going over the bumps, it feels kind of like all over the place. I guess just it's the floaty nature of it all. But let's slow down a little bit so we can get some space in between us and the car in front of us. One thing I love about this AMG is the fact that you can't hear anything on the outside. It is so insulated in here. You can't even hear the cars driving by, even at speed, which is really cool. That's what I love about a car. I need a car to feel solid. Like, I need to feel confident in where I'm at. I need to feel like it's one piece. I don't like cars with a bunch of rattling parts. Window time. Oh, that sounds crazy. Let's see if it echoes off the trees. You already know this car likes to get sideways. I was just giving it a little bit of gas around 3.5, 4 grand mid-turn. You could already tell it wanted to slide. But we already caught up to the car in front of us. That's how fast this car is, yo. You know, I was thinking about this earlier and it actually made me kind of sad. I was thinking about how the automotive industry is kind of degenerated into the same thing. Not only in terms of design with crossovers, but also with power plants. Powertrains are going electric soon, but right now the top of the line performance power plant for many brands, not just Mercedes, is the 4-liter twin turbo V8. You find that in brands from Audi to Mercedes to even McLaren. It's just kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Like, everyone is kind of degenerated to the same technology, and this is why I love the 5.5-liter twin turbo, because this is what Mercedes really wanted to do when they dropped the 6.2 liter. They still wanted a big displacement engine, but regulation just couldn't let them keep it. They only had this engine for 5 years, and it's just a beauty. It combines the deep throaty noise of the 6.2 with the instant low-end torque of the twin turbos. It's just a shame that they stopped making this engine this big. And even on the new AMGs coming forward, after 2022, I believe, they're going to be 4-cylinder with the hybrid. You won't have this noise at all. AMGs will never be the same again. This is why naturally aspirated cars like the 458, Lambos naturally aspirated engines, Porsches GT3 naturally aspirated engines, these are all going to go up in price because people don't get the same theater and excitement that they used to get from these types of cars. Cars now are more of appliances than anything. They're not really things you drive. They take you places. You don't drive yourself places, if you know what I mean. But that's why this car is so special. Mercedes won't ever make a big displacement twin turbo engine like this again. This was the biggest displacement V8 engine Mercedes made. You just give it some gas out of the turn. Woo! As you can tell, it's really easy to get sideways, but that all-wheel drive just pulls you right out of it. It makes it so easy to recover. Changes, man. That's, whoo! I just love, it's like a thunderclap every time you upshift. It's like, whoa, bomb. Nothing sounds like an AMG V8, I'm telling you. This thing sounds like nothing I've ever heard before. That low-end grunt, and it kind of has a nice tone up at the top. The range and tone isn't as much as, say, like my high revving V10. This only revs to about 6,500 RPM. But when you get up there, this thing is going. Now, I mentioned earlier how the inside of the car actually felt a little smaller than it was. And it's interesting that I said that because when I'm driving the car, it actually still feels a lot smaller than it is. Because I don't know if it's just the way the suspension is set up. the responsiveness of the wheel, how it turns in, it feels like a lot smaller than it really is. Easy to see why people think it's a DCT, man. This thing shifts so fast. No lag in between, no loss of power, nothing. Just instantaneous. All right, let's put it in full comfort and see how it is. Wow. This almost feels like a regular E-Class in terms of the dampening. Still not much body roll, but a lot more than compared to in Sport Plus. Still goes though. You can tell it's all-wheel drive because as soon as you floor it, that thing wants to pull like either direction. So basically what the E63 AMG is that one unicorn car that can do everything. You can drive long distances and be comfortable. You can hit 186 miles an hour on the highway passing somebody. You can put your kids in the back. You have lots of trunk space. You got a nice audio system as well as lots of creature comforts, everything you could really need. And I really can't find any faults with this car other than the fact that it's just really expensive to run. Gas mileage is gonna be terrible unless you're cruising around. If you're flooring it everywhere like I've been today, you're probably gonna get like 10 miles to the gallon. Insurance definitely gonna be a lot. But as far as I can tell, this car is one of the best all-around cars you can buy today. Even new cars, just because of the fact that it says a 5.5 liter twin turbo V8. I don't hear any noise coming from the outside. I don't hear any other cars. All I hear is some road noise from the tires just because these are Pilot Super Sports. But other than that, this car is so solidly built, you can't hardly hear anything. But let's see how it is on the highway real quick. I'm just gonna go for just a little highway test. I was gonna give it some gas on the highway, but one, there's a state trooper right there, and two, there's too much traffic to really do anything with this car. This car needs space to stretch its legs because it got some long ones. Bye-bye, trooper. Gotta get on this exit real quick. Let's get out of here. Thank you again, Tempa, for letting me borrow this car, man. I really appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Turning radius is pretty good on this car, actually. That's very surprising. But that about wraps up this video of the E63s AMG. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what cars you want to see next. Let YouTube algorithm know that you want to keep seeing my videos so I can keep making more. We're at 300 something subscribers right now. Help me get to 1,000, y'all, so I can keep putting out these videos. And y'all be easy and have a good one.